Um, uh, Greetings. This is Phil Simberg again for the USBGF, and I have a position here that was sent to me by one of my students who had a real major question about the cube action here, and I gave him my answer, but I wanted to be sure that I really gave him the right answer. And when I want to be sure I'm giving the right answer, I usually call on one of my teaching partners, John O'Hagan, Perry, Stick, or David Rockwell. And I've got Stick with me today, who's particularly good at these kinds of positions. And he's going to give us some insights into this position. So it's a normal match score, 11 away, 11 away, cube in the center, and blue is on roll. And, of course, the first question here is, what about the cube action? Should blue double? And if blue doubles, should red take or drop? Why don't you give that a little bit of thought, and then I'll just turn it over to Stick. So if you were blue, would you double? And if you were red, would you take or pass? Okay, Stick, their time's up. The clock was running. It's up to you. What would you like to do with this?
All right, so I'm going to address more the double part of this. I mean the take part of this than the doubling part. Just because I think about everyone doubles these, even if it's not a double, it's a really good double in principle from the amount of passes you get. I see this a lot over the board for these types of positions in the early game. People don't know when they get two guys up in the air what they're supposed to be doing with the cube, especially when the opponent has any sort of board. You draw a lot of passes just because it's very easy to see the pessimistic side of this. So when people look at this, I feel like they see it the wrong way, first of all. This came up in someone's match, and it was described to me as the first thing that caught me off guard was that they described it as blue having a 3.5-point board. I'm very picky about the way people describe things anymore. Some people describe blots as builders or builders as blots and things like 3.5-point boards, which it's not a 3.5-point board because it's not likely that 2-point blot is going to be covered before you get a whack at it. So to me, it's a 3-point board with a blot. If it was going to be a 3.5-point board, we'd need a direct cover or more indirect coverage for me to refer to it that way, because that sounds better for blue, it being a 3.5-point board. Whereas actually that blot's better for red.
So if blue's checker on the 11 were on the 8, you'd call it a 3.5-point board?
Definitely. Yeah.
Okay.
Because here most of the time, again, what's going to happen is blue is going to roll whatever, and for the most part, blue is probably going to play two guys down from the midpoint, or bring two more guys in the zone somehow, maybe push a checker on the 11-point, because he's in full-out blitz mode if he can get there. Another thing we need to notice in these early game blitzes as red is the pip count. Surprisingly enough, the race is even right now, so that should be a big flag for you as red that, hey, maybe you want to think about taking this cube. Another thing, obviously, blue only has 7 to 8 men in the zone, depending on how you define the zone. So he does not have any ammunition whatsoever to complete this closeout. Even if, on the off chance you do fan right away, you still have a lot of time to get your footing. He's stuck with 3 men back instead of his normal 2, which is obviously why the race is the way it is. And when you get back in, you're going to have more play against those checkers. I recommend a lot of early game study. Not only checker play, but early game blitzes are essential because they come up very often. Lots of reference positions in my head.
I like to say that you have to have reference positions for these because Albert Einstein could not look at these and figure out how often you win and how often you get gammon. You have to start with some very good references.
Right. I recommend building up the basic reference positions, the very common ones, and just keep adding on and always adding on reference positions. I just did some last week where somebody didn't know. They kept taking against 4-point boards, and they couldn't seem to get it right. They always just wanted to take, and so we tried to isolate the times where it could be right to take against a 4-point board. And here,
this is not an unusual blitz position. This is probably blue rolled a double 3 and in the last roll or two, and there was a little hitting back and forth, and this is how it evolved. This is not that unusual.
Yeah, you could, if I was stretching this into a reference position, I could stretch it into 5-4 split, 3-3, and then a fan, and then try to adjust from there. But I would just take this based on that there's really nobody in the zone and 3 open points in a blot.
So you're taking this cube?
Yes.
Okay.
So a lot of people get very pessimistic and do drop. One thing I recommend is playing out. the game. And you don't even need to play out the whole game in situations like this, though if you have the time, I'd recommend that too. But the more you play out a position like this, the better you're going to understand it. But in this turn, you're going to see within probably a few rolls how red gets back in this game so often, how he just gets his footing, how the game's not over. So what Phil and I are going to do, we're just going to play out a quick game or two, and we'll just, I have total faith in this position that we haven't set up anything beforehand, that red's going to turn it around, Phil's not going to roll poorly, and we're going to be able to turn the game around very quickly to get back in the game.
So am I going to be blue or red?
We're going to be red.
Yeah. Okay. We're going to be red against the computer?
Yep.
Okay, set up, play from position.
Just make blue 3 fly.
We'll make the blue. Blue will be the computer at a high level. Is that 3 ply?
That works, yep.
Okay. And player 1 will be us. And we're red. Okay. So I hit OK. And we're going to take.
Yes.
And like Stick said, he brings the builder down to get into the zone and to have more builders. Okay, so now we roll and immediately hit, and we're in great shape already.
Right, now he's got 4 guys back. Now we're ahead in the race. Now his attack is stymied. Now, just over that first sequence, so much has already happened. It's been in our favor.
Mm-hmm. Well, that hit was big.
Yeah.
We're coming in with the ace, and I guess we're coming up with the 3.
Yep.
My guess, right?
Yep.
Okay. We don't want to expose another blot. We'd rather make the 4-point. And now we've anchored, and I don't think we can afford to give up our anchor. So now we have 2 plays. We can slot or hit, and I'm a pretty big proponent of hitting here, because we stop him possibly from making this point. We're exposing the blot anyway, and if we come down, we're leaving him so many shots in addition to the cover, and we're stripping our midpoint. So I would think hitting's pretty obvious here, right?
Well, I think slotting the midpoint is definitely not an option. I am not convinced that coming out is not an option.
Oh, coming out. Giving up our...
This is something I think most people wouldn't do either, is come out. Because when you come out, you're walking out into a double shot, seemingly, when the opponent's obviously going to hit you all the time. Mm-hmm. There are going to be some hit and cover numbers. It's going to feel like you lose more gammons because you're coming off the anchor. But that's a very terrible anchor to begin with, especially if they get to make the 4-point, which they do with all 7s and 9s, obviously. So, about a direct shot worth of the time. And also, again, the first thing I'm asking myself ever is, what's the DMP play? And I know that's the DMP play. I mean,
really?
You're not going to stay back there, are you?
No. But I thought
you're worried about
you hit to stop him from making the 4-point.
Yeah, you might. I'm not saying. I'm not sure. I'm just saying it. Coming out to the 17 would definitely be on my radar.
All right. Well, let's make sure we make the right play. I've got this in the free mode. So free mode allows me to get a hint. So we can cheat, and we'll see who's the better player, me or Stick. This is going to prove it once and for all. .004. You're only .004. He's the number 6 giant in the world, and I'm number 62. There should be more than a .004 difference between us. Let's plus it and see if we get a little bit better.
Again, my
.005.
Yeah. It's a DMP play, but only by 1.5%. But it is, you see, the DMP play, and that's why it's always so hard to overcome.
Well, you just don't know how to go for the gammons the way
I guess not. I don't know that Chicago Chouette style of gammoning, no.
Of course, my play wins fewer gammons, now that I look at it. No, the hitting play does win more gammons, but the hitting play wins 0.5% more gammons. All right, we're going to make the right play because we're trying to prove a point about why this was a take. So we're going to make the right play by clicking on the light bulb. It does that. Okay, he hits 2. He's still in blitz mode. You can see if he was in a priming mode, he would have made the point. But why not go for the blitz? It's a lot more gammons. And that he doesn't want me to anchor. Oops. Getting tough now. We better roll a 4. We're not necessarily proving anything, but again, whether it works or not, this is a one-time shot. I think what we have seen is that red has lots of play. Even if we get blitzed and get backgammon here, we haven't proven that it was wrong to take. By playing it out, you get to see that there's play in this game.
Yeah, and right away, we got back in the game. In this game, even if it ends up going bad, we're 7 rolls down the way. It went decent right away. And again, we're back in the game still, even if it's only anchored on the ace point, and it took us a minute. We're still in the game. All our checkers are in play.
Yeah. Well, let me do something that I'd like to add about this position. Let's go back to the original position, and I'm going to hit Control-C, Control-V, puts us back into the original position. And let's assume that it's a double and a take, and red takes this cube. What most people don't understand, and this is the first thing I did, if red were to anchor on the 4-point, and let's say that in the meantime blue made this point, and blue escaped the checker, pretty much. And let's put red on roll here. You can't believe how good a game red has here holding the cube. This is almost a 50-50 game. In fact, it probably is very close to a 50-50 game. Let's see. 48-51, and that's cubeless equity. So red also has the advantage of holding the cube, which is worth something. So this is about as close to a 50-50 game as you can get. And most people can't visualize. It looks like blue's way ahead. He's got 4 interboard points, and red doesn't have any, and red's all stacked. But having an advanced anchor in your opponent's board while he's got checkers back, you've got a hell of a game. And I also put it in, if he had been unlucky and made the ace point anchor, he's got nowhere near a 50-50 game, but he's still got over 35% or something like that, 38%. Oh, he's got 40%, and he's holding the cube. So he still isn't dead at all. He's got a reasonable game. So what we're thinking is, what the point is, by playing it out a few times, you're going to see that most of the time you're going to anchor. And when you anchor, even with a bad anchor, you've got yourself a really good take. And if you've got a good anchor, you've got a terrific game. Now, of course, you have to weigh that against the glass is half empty. What happens when you don't get the anchor? You're going to get gammoned a lot. And that's the risk of the Blitz. But a gammon at most scores, and at this score, is only worth half as much as winning and losing the game. So people overvalue and overfear gammons, and that's why so many people drop this cube. Anything else you want to say about this position, Stick?
Yeah, put up the original one again, just to build on what you just said. Put the original back up. Yeah.
Control-V, here's the original.
All right, so again, if you were trying to look at a normal sequence or a semi-normal sequence, we'll look at the blue rolled the 4-2. Put the 4-2, play 13-7 for blue.
After the cube.
Yeah. Put the cube on our side. Put us on roll. And, we rolled a 2-1, which is a good roll here, but, a 2-3, a 2x, whatever. Give us the 2x and look how much we win already with that. I think we're going to win a lot just after 2-3. Yeah. Just bring in one checker. And that's
let's just hit the button, right?
Yeah. I think we win a lot.
44%
already.
44%, and we're holding the cube. Again, these numbers are cubeless. We add on to that your cube big, and you've got more value than that.
Yeah. And
very good. Here's another thing I really wanted to point out about the opening position. These positions, I'll tell you why you have to study it, and why Albert Einstein, and I'm not going to knock the guy, he was pretty smart, not as smart as Stick and me. One of the reasons you need to study these things is if you just move this checker from here to here, it's a huge pass.
Easy, no,
huge
it's not.
pass.
No, it's not.
Oh,
no,
it's a take.
Yeah.
It's a take with one checker there. You're right. It's still a take. It went down quite a bit, but it's still a take.
It's a huge difference having that guy there.
It's a huge difference. Yeah. What if he only had 2 checkers back instead of 3? That's a huge difference. Yeah. So it doesn't take much to change. You know why I thought it was a drop? Because I was looking at it at a different score that we had before.
Yeah.
When we initially got this, it was a little bit different score. Stick and I decided to do this at a normal match score. But at a different score where it was originally sent to me by my student, it does go from a take to a pass when this checker goes to here or one of these checkers comes out. But it makes a big difference in these positions, and that's why you just have to study it. You have to study the reference position. I want to just show off real quick, 1 second. When Stick talks about studying the reference positions, the most common blitz is when your opponent rolls a 5-2 and splits, and you roll a double 5. And this is a double and a pass, and blue gets gammoned about 38% of the time, and he wins about 30% of the time.
Wrong player on roll.
Oops, I got the wrong player on roll. That would help. 32-40. So it's about a 30-40 situation, And if he comes in with one checker here, it's a small double. If he comes in with one checker here, it's no double, and here it's pick 'em. And not only do I know these numbers, every one of my students knows these reference positions and also knows approximately what the gammons and wins are for each of these, so you can know what to do at different scores. You have to have these references on blitz positions. You must start with that. That's why when Stick plays speed gammon and top players play speed gammon, they can make the right decision in 5 seconds because they already know these positions. They don't have to sit here and try and estimate, well, let's see, how often will I get gammon? How often will I win? They are doing that, but they're starting with a reference where they already know the numbers very close to it. So if you know this number, then you would know how many more gammons there would be if there was another blot out there, which, by the way, is very little. This almost doesn't affect gammons at all. At first, I thought you would raise the gammons by maybe 5 or 6%. I think it raises it 2% out here. Now, having a blot here, now you got a big number as far as raising gammons. Okay, so these blitz positions are fun. They're highly volatile, but you have to study them to understand. Stick, thank you very much for your help and for donating your time to the U.S. Backgammon Federation for these positions. They're enlightening, and we've gotten a lot of new members and renewal just because of these videos. And I know it's all because of me, but I know that maybe the fact that I've got help from you and O'Hagan and Matt Krongeyer and Steve Sachs and Mary Hickey and others has been a big bonus. So I'm going to get more help from you guys. Thanks for